Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling from Dania Beach, Florida. And I'm bringing you Platinum versus Impact Wrestling Rebellion 2021. I gotta say, and early numbers indicate, because on Fight TV you can see how many people bought the pay-per-view. Impact has not had this many buys for a pay-per-view in a very long time. And what did they see? I gotta say, they saw the best of Impact Wrestling. Not every match was super great, but I will say overall, the pacing of the show was very good. Um, the only thing that lacked a little bit, I think, was the women's title match. I don't think that quite lived up to billing, but everything else ranged from fantastic to a very nice surprise. And then the match between Rich Swann and Kenny Omega is exactly what it should have been. Just enough shenanigans to make you kind of throw you off the track, just enough that they could just have a hard hitting conclusion with Kenny Omega obviously winning and being the unified champion and leaving things up in the air for Impact. But that can only be good television on the Impact end. We opened with Josh Alexander against Ace Austin and TJP. It's the best match I've seen Josh Alexander have. He wins this match with a double underhook pile driver, which I thought was a nice way to segue into one of the bigger spots in the main event. Again, that's a very Kenny Omega kind of thing to really use what they see as part of the storytelling of the match. Anybody who says his matches don't have psychology, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Nonetheless, I thought this was the right person winning. Josh Alexander ever since the split up of the North. And again, it's a shame that they never capitalized on the North having a match with the Bucks and that kind of thing in the early days of the AEW Impact thing. But nonetheless, Josh Alexander winning and looking really impressive. And I think he'll give a very different look for the X Division for a while, which can only be a good thing. We had a video about Violent by Design against various faces, including James Storm and Chris Sabin, Eddie Edwards, and Willie Mack, and apparently. Eric Young is injured, so he's going to be picking his replacement. His replacement, I guess they're calling W. Morrissey, William Morrissey, formerly known as Big Kaz. That's their big acquisition. They put it in a great spot right at the beginning of the pay-per-view. They had Big Kaz dominate, or Morrissey, excuse me, dominate, hitting the move I used to use, the Platinum Plunge on Willie Mack and getting the pin. Meat and potatoes, exactly what this match needed to be. Then we had a bit of a promo for Matt Cardona and Brian Myers, and I have to admit, at this point, I thought, "Oh, this is the match that's going to let me down. It's going to go too long, and blah blah blah." On the contrary, I thought it was a kind of a quick, violent match, and the great story about Matt Cardona looking legitimately hurt, and Brian Myers, his former friend and tag team partner, helping him up, but then taking him down, hitting him with that roster cut clothesline lariat variation, and getting the pin, looking every bit the asshole for doing it. And I thought the right move. Again, if you think that there's a new audience for Impact tonight, they really did themselves a good service, and I would imagine they're going to get a nice big bump on their show on Thursday. Gina, who's their interviewer, is with Tony Khan and Jerry Lynn and Tony Schiavone and Aubrey Edwards, who they want to be the referee. Of course, Impact wants their own person to be the referee, Brian Hebner. So they make the concession that the two of them will referee together. Cool. Then we get a thing about the Knockouts Tag Championship and all the drama that's gone on there. Fire and Flava, including Georgia's own Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steeles against Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering, who is taking the place of Jazz, who is now retired. But Jazz is their manager, which I thought was a nice little touch there. The commentary for this match I thought was particularly good. Matt Stryker and D'Lo Brown are amongst my favorites. They do a lot of talking, which normally I wouldn't like, but I get it because they don't have an audience for Impact at all. So they need that element of noise in there. And so I get it. And I thought that they did a particularly good job setting up various stories, putting Fire and Flava the champions over, though they weren't champions at the end of this night because Rachel Ellering did this interesting move where she hooked a leg, picked her up like she was going to give her a fisherman's suplex or a fisherman's buster, but then flipped her down into like a power bomb kind of thing, and got the pin. So Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering, with Jazz as their manager, are your new Knockouts Tag Champions. So that's two title changes that they've had. Match number 5, Last Man Standing against Sammy Callahan against Trey Miguel. A good match. I think a lot of people were looking for this match. If you're a longtime Impact fan, of this is going to steal the show. I hate to break it to people, nothing was going to steal the show from the main event. It just wasn't going to happen. This match, though, I thought they had a number of creative, really creative, cool spots. And at the end, I love the thing where Trey Miguel slipped out from being trapped underneath the stairs, came out, hit a cutter on Sammy Callahan through a table, and then the two of them with the Rocky 2 finish, both trying to get up, but Sammy Callahan unable to do so. So Trey Miguel wins. The last man standing match. Rich Swann promo, very good, really set the stage for the importance of our main event. Good Brothers against Finjuice. I think they went with the right call here. It was a good enough match, and Finjuice retained the titles, which to me is far more interesting than the Good Brothers winning them back. So cool. Deonna Purrazzo, I knew she needed to win this here. I was wishing for Tennille Dashwood that she was going to have a great match. She had an okay match, and all the extra shenanigans with her, like dude that helps her, and Kimberly and Susan Fredini. I thought those shenanigans on the outside of the ring really took away from the match and kind of threw the whole rhythm off. Deonna Purrazzo eventually wins with their cradle pile driver, and then they start beating down Tennille Dashwood again, which is odd because Tennille Dashwood is in heel as well. And so the whole thing just felt kind of a little wonky and off. But then Taylor Wilde comes, cleans house. She's made her debut. Um, and she's a figure from, you know, TNA's women's division from back in the day. So that return is also kind of a cool thing. So they had one sort of debut in Big Kaz slash Morrissey, and then they had an old face returning in Taylor Wilde. So that's good use of this pay per view. Then they announced that they're just basically doing a pay per view every month. My God, Impact. Jeez, I guess you got to make your money some way. And then they have a video, a setting of how we got to Kenny Omega against Rich Swann, title versus title. Then we had the match, which I just thought was a really well done affair. They had enough referee shenanigans with Brian Hebner getting bumped, where you thought, "Oh God, is that what they're going to make the story of this match?" But nope. They certainly could not have made Rich Swann look tougher in defeat. That's for sure. And I thought, they really did put an onus on how important this match was to people in Impact in particular. Again, really, really cool. Kenny Omega wins. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing up, but I have to say, overall, this pay per view, it did impact a lot of favors. A lot of people are going to just nitpick and say, well, Rich Swann losing makes them look bad. I was thinking about it like this: if they keep them unified, right? Just have Kenny Omega as a dual champion. Eventually, I think Kenny Omega loses to somebody of note, at AEW, be it Adam Page or whomever. Does he lose all of those titles? I think maybe he should, or at least the Impact and the AEW titles. And then you have that champion eventually drop it to somebody on Impact. You could do some really cool stuff there. Or Kenny Omega loses the AEW title, and then he comes back and loses the Impact title on Impact, down the road. I don't know where this is going, and to me, that's the most interesting thing. And I think certainly numbers will bear that out for Impact Wrestling.